Hello, everyone. My name is Roet-Green. I'm an assistant professor at the Simon Business School, University of Rochester. And today I'm going to talk about on designing a socially optimal expedited service and its impact on individual welfare, a joint work with my PhD student, Aditya Shetty. Our work is motivated by the TSA PreCheck service, which was launched by TSA in 2011. It offers an expedited security check in airports all across the US. And for passengers who want to enroll in the service, they need to go through a background check, their fingerprints are taken, and if they're approved, they pay $85 for 5 years, and they can take the special lanes. And in those special lanes, the wait time is very low compared to regular security check lines. And also the service itself is much faster because the passengers don't have to take off their shoes or belts or jackets, and they can keep their laptops and liquids in their luggage. So motivated by this type of service and other services like Nexus and Global Entry, we are modeling a mandatory service with a one-time enrollment fee that pays over multiple uses. This fee is used to pay for outsourced screening, like the TSA example, and it's not considered, therefore, as transfer payment. And the pre-processing is what makes the service to be faster. And because, as we said, the fee here is not used to make revenue, the objective here would be to reduce congestion and not to increase profit. So what are the research questions that we're asking here? We are interested in studying the resource allocation. How should a welfare maximizing service provider should allocate resources to an expedited service and a regular service, given that the customers, the passengers are strategic and they have heterogeneous usage rates. The other question that we are asking is the question of fairness. Okay, so we maximize the social welfare. Does it come at the expense of some of the customers? And if that's the case, how can we make everyone better off? And the reason why we asked this question is because TSA was criticized by passengers who claimed that the waiting time in the standard service increased when the new expedited TSA PreCheck service was introduced. So to check whether this is indeed the case, we are going to ask the question of fairness. Our work is related to other works in strategic queuing, and specifically works that looked at differentiated services and works that looked at multiple use. So when customers have more than just the unit demand, we look at both differentiated services and multiple use customers. And we ask how to design a differentiated service that is also expedited. We start with a standard service with capacity mu, and then we reallocate the resources into these two services, the standard and the expedited. M would be the proportion allocated to the expedited service, a proportion of resources, and eta would be the efficiency multiplier, which tells us how faster the expedited service would be compared to the standard service. We assume that we have two types of customers denoted by age and L, high usage, low usage rate. And here's the assumption about the usage rate, gamma age, gamma L. We assume that gamma age is greater than gamma L. Out of N customers, there's a proportion of customers with high usage and proportion with low usage. And we assume that customers arrive to the system according to a Poisson process. And we are looking at their arrival, and at arrival, they decide whether to take the standard service or the expedited service. And here we have the capacity allocated for each of the services. An important point to keep in mind is that when customers are making the decision which service to attend, they don't really observe the queues. These queues are in the future. They are not even formed yet, and therefore we are assuming that the system is of unobservable queues. And for stability, we have to assume that the overall demand is lower than the overall capacity. The individual customer decision is a function of the cost of enrollment, the equilibrium wait times, and the cost of waiting per unit of time. So what's the customer dilemma? If customers use the standard service, then they only incur the cost of waiting for the standard service. If they enroll in the expedited service, they also have their enrollment fee. And if we compare the two, we see that customers enroll if their overall expected gain from waiting time is greater than the cost of enrollment. From this, we learned that high usage customers have a greater incentive to enroll, and because the difference in wait time between the two services increases as we give more resources to the expedited service, we can use those two properties and prove a unique equilibrium strategy in this game. And for the rest of the talk, we are just going to discuss the normalized fee F over C. The strategy in this game is the probability to enroll to the expedited service. And there are three options: either to enroll to the standard service, to the expedited service, or to mix between the two. And if we look at the two types of customers, each one of them has the three options. From what we learned before, the high usage customers have a higher incentive to enroll, and therefore the low usage customers will only enroll only if all high usage customers are enrolled, and therefore we are kept with only these 5 combinations of strategies. And from that, we can calculate the probability to enroll to the expedited service, and we have a one-on-one mapping between the strategies and this probability. So now that we can calculate the customer strategies, we can calculate the probability to enroll. Therefore, we can calculate the expected arrival rate to each of the queues. And given the provider's allocation, we can calculate the expected waiting time in each of the queues. And from that, we can go back and calculate the customer strategies and so on. So by going through this iterative process, we find the equilibrium strategy. Let's take a look at the equilibrium strategy. So what we see here on the x-axis is the allocation of resources to the expedited service from 0 to 1. And on the y-axis is the fraction of customers that are enrolled to the expedited service. So we can see that if we don't give enough resources to the expedited service, no customer will enroll. But as we increase the allocation, high usage customers are starting to enroll until we get to the point where there's enough allocation of resources such that all high usage customers are enrolled. And then we need more allocation of resources in order to have the low usage customers to start enrolling as well, until we get to the point where we allocate enough resources to the expedited service such that all customers are now enrolled. What about social welfare? So we are actually going to consider the difference in social welfare between the case where there's no expedited service, only standard service, and the case where we allocated some resources to the expedited service. And here how it looks like. Again, same x-axis with capacity allocation, but now we look at a difference in social welfare. So at the beginning, as we allocate resources to the expedited service, there is a decrease in the social welfare because customers are not enjoying this allocation. They are just suffering from the loss of allocation to the regular service. And then the social welfare will increase as more and more high usage customers are joining the expedited service. We get to the point where all high usage customers are enrolled. And here we can have two scenarios. Scenario one is the case where this social welfare function is going to decrease, and the other one is where we have a concave social welfare function here that is first increasing and then decreasing. And for the rest of the cases, as we allocate more and more resources to the expedited service, and the low usage customers are now also going to enroll, we see an increase in the social welfare. So from that, we can learn that the socially optimal resources allocation can be one of four choices: either no allocation of resources to the expedited service, or full allocation of resources, or two intermediate solutions. What's interesting about it is that all four solutions induce a pure equilibrium strategy where either no one enrolls, all enroll, or just high usage customers enroll and low usage customers do not enroll. Okay, from here what we are doing is that we're going to take the two parameters that we think that can be somehow controlled by the service provider, and these are the fee, the enrollment fee, and the speed or the efficiency of the expedited service. And we are going to map each of these pairs to a unique socially optimal allocation solution. So here we can see an example. In the x-axis, we have the fee that starts from 0 and increases. In the y-axis, we have the efficiency, starts from 1, which means same as the standard, and increases. And we can see here the four different areas that correspond to the four different solutions that we just discussed. And if we follow an increase in the fee, and we can see that when the fee is very low, the solution should be such that we allocate all the resources to the expedited service. As we increase the fee, we get the intermediate solutions, and when the fee is very high, it is better not to allocate any resources to the expedited service. Now we're going to ask the question of fairness. And to answer that, we are still going to look at the difference in social welfare, but now we are just going to break it into two: the difference in social welfare for the high usage customer and for the low usage customers. And it's easy to show that the high usage customers will always benefit more from more allocation of resources to the expedited service, and therefore it's enough for us just to look at what is going on with the low usage customers. Are they better off or worse off by this optimal solution that increases the overall welfare? So here's the answer. If we look at the four different solutions, so in the first case where we have no expedited service, no one is worse off. And also in the case where we just allocate enough resources, just that we'll have all the high usage customers enrolled. The problem is with this solution, where we allocate more resources to the expedited service, we have no transfer of customers from the standard service to the expedited service. The increase in welfare comes from the reducing wait time for the high usage customers, but this comes at the expense of the low usage customers that now have to wait longer in the standard service. And it also can be problematic here, where we have all customers using the expedited service because this is the only service that is available. And the reason for that is that we make them pay for the expedited service, although they don't really need it. So if we go back to the example that I showed you before, the black area here is the area where the low usage customers are worse off because of the optimal solution. So what do we do to fix that? We have two levers. We can increase the efficiency of the expedited service, or we can reduce the enrollment fee. So our investigation into this showed that actually by making the expedited service faster, we can make everyone better off. However, by reducing the enrollment fee, we do not achieve that goal. Last two things that I want to show you as extensions are the case where F, the enrollment fee, is a decision variable. So until now, we assume that it's not a decision variable because the service is outsourced, and this fee is used to pay for those outsourced services. But we want to consider the case where the provider can increase the fee or subsidize the fee to change the decision of customers, and because of that, to change the solution. So we are going to look at a difference alpha in the fee. Note that this difference is actually considered now as a transfer payment, and therefore it does not affect the social welfare function directly, but it changes the strategy of customers, and it can change, therefore, the solution of the optimal welfare. What we show is that there is no point in increasing the enrollment fee, but sometimes subsidizing the fee can increase the welfare, as we can see here in region 3. And the reason for that is that now we are actually getting those mixed strategies that we didn't see before in the original problem. The other question that we ask is, what if the relative service rate, eta, the efficiency rate, is determined by the fixed cost? And you can think about a case where by increasing the fee, we can do a deeper screening. And because we do this deeper screening, we can now expedite the service even more. And what we show in the paper is what would be the conditions under which we are going to have different types of optimal solutions in this case. So to summarize, what we showed here is that the optimal resource allocation can be one of the two extreme solutions or one of two intermediate points, and that it always induces a pure strategy. We also looked at the fairness issue and asked under which conditions all customers are better off when the expedited service is offered. Potential extensions can be considering heterogeneity in cost of waiting, adding capacity costs to the objective, and maybe looking at dynamic allocation in the case of fluctuating demand. So that's it. And thank you very much for listening. Bye.